Batman is one of the greatest combatants ever seen in the DC universe. With his expert knowledge of many martial arts and his brainpower that puts him up there with Lex Luthor and Mr. Terrific, he's no slouch in a fight. But what would happen if we tossed Batman in with the characters from Invincible? Could the brains of Robot or the strength of Omni-Man even hold a candle to the Dark Knight? Well, today I'll answer that question. First, we need to figure out which Batman. There have been many iterations of Batman over his storied history, and honestly, I could pick whomever. I could pit Vampire Batman against the Invincible cast, but that wouldn't make any sense. Instead, it'll just be mainline Batman, the one we all know and love. Bruce Wayne of the mainline universe took his vast wealth and skills to become Batman at 25 years old. Since becoming Batman, he has gone from a man taking the fight to the mob, to fighting criminals ranging from the Joker to Mr. Freeze, and in the universe's craziest of times, he's taken a gun and shot Darkseid, or even taken his Hellbat armor and threw hands with the ruler of Apocalypse. Batman at his core will fight any threat his universe has to offer, but what if he had to fight threats from the Invincible universe? Now, I know this is a random name to come out the gate with, but Batman could topple Shapesmith. As well, Batman has experience with Martians because of his time with John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. Considering the overlap, Batman would have a trick or two up his sleeve. Shapesmith's powers include stuff such as shapeshifting. Batman has answers for both Martian Manhunter and Plastic Man, and this man is an overlap of both of them. It's a fairly simple and fairly easy win for Batman, though it won't always stay that way. Next up on the list of folks who would fall to the Caped Crusader, Batman going head to head with the Mauler twins is essentially an easy win for the Dark Knight, I'd say. The Mauler twins have notoriety for cloning and various tech-based weapons as some of their major feats, but in going head to head with someone who has feats of establishing plans to defeat the Justice League, as shown in the storyline Tower of Babel, there's little room for a win for the twins. The Mauler twins' actions of interdimensional travel and cloning are cool, but they have been much more useful in making scarier villains than they have been in being effective villains in their own right. Batman beats the Mauler twins through capability alone, considering they probably would be stuck arguing with each other instead of actually focusing on the fight. Shapesmith and the Maulers were a warm-up though. Let's look at something a little more interesting. Just like how Watchmen used Charlton comics as inspiration, Invincible clearly used inspiration for their own characters. Darkwing, in this case Darkwing 2, in many ways is clearly their answer to Batman, but Batman very clearly beats Darkwing 2. I want to take a look at some of the stuff both men have accomplished just to really see how they stack up. For starters, Darkwing 2 has only one major hangover on the Batman, and that's his access to the Shadowverse, a way for him to pass from shadow to shadow.
Because you are never leaving.
Batman as a human being has done things such as lift the venom-induced Bane over his head and attempted to break his back. I'd say considering the training alone, Batman wouldn't find it all too hard to avoid a trip to the Shadowverse, and he'd find it all too easy to put down his counterpart from Invincible. A clear win for the Batman still, but things only get more challenging for him from here. Moving up in the ranks of Invincible would be pitting Batman against someone such as Rex Splode. Instead of tech-based, Batman comes face to face with someone with powers and some combative skills. Rex was someone whose parents surrendered him because they didn't want to deal with a child with superpowers. Trained by the government, Rex is no slouch in hand-to-hand combat or ranged fighting. However, Batman is someone who's mastered roughly 127 martial arts and has combat experience against folks with much deadlier combat work than Rex Splode. Most notably combatants such as Ra's al Ghul of the League of the Shadows and Deathstroke, a master assassin. The sort of fight between Batman and Rex would also go to the Batman, as nothing can really beat experience. When push comes to shove, Batman's been in more dangerous confrontations than Rex. Things get a little closer though when the Invincible characters in question are stronger. I think the memes may make him look a little goofy, but the Immortal is someone who's thrown down with the Viltrums, Invisible's closet answer to a Kryptonian, and lived to tell the tale. Mostly. When it comes to it though, to be honest, Batman could be the Immortal, but Immortal is where things get a little harder. A man with superhuman strength, flight, and durability is already challenging enough, but he is also immortal after all. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience that circles the Dark Knight's lifespan multiple times over. He has regenerative capabilities, as seen with the fact that he's been beheaded and came back to life once his head was reattached. The man has a lot going for him clearly, though you look at Batman's accomplishments such as his agility to fight against men like Superman who have superior feats to Immortal. His Justice Buster armor from Batman Endgame would more than likely withstand any kind of fight with Immortal and take a clean win. The Justice Buster held back most of the League in its major appearance, while the Immortal was wrecked by just Omni-Man on 2 separate occasions. Batman versus the Immortal wouldn't be easy, but it would be a win for the Batman. Batman's brawls with the cast of Invincible only get harder from here though. though. Kate is someone who can make an endless amount of duplicates of herself, but even that wouldn't net her with a win against Batman. Unlike her universe's contemporaries, Batman's whole deal is solving mysteries, hence his moniker at the world's greatest detective, so it stands to reason he'd quickly find out Kate's act of keeping the original Kate somewhere safe from harm. All he'd have to do was go after and take down the main Kate, and he'd get the win. His martial arts prowess more so supersedes Kate's, as he has a vast knowledge of many styles. Would it be easy? No, but Batman stands to topple someone like Duplicate, though things only get more challenging from here. Monster Girl is a funny case because she can turn into a powerful monster, but I'd say it still goes to Batman. Within the confines of the series, Monster Girl has never had the chance to reach her maximum potential. Monster Girl's monster form gets stronger the younger her human form is, but on average, she wouldn't ever be an infant in a fight with Batman. That doesn't mean it would be an easy fight for the Batman. To put it another way, it's often cited that someone like Bane on Venom could lift around 15 tons, while Monster Girl is purported to lift 50 to 60 tons. Something like Batman's Justice Buster armor could hold its own in this case as well. Taking direct hits from Superwoman and Wonder Woman, who have comparable strength to Monster Girl, shows the armor could hold. The Buster's abilities would be able to keep Monster Girl at bay, and it boils down to who tires out first. Batman's feats include fighting an endless horde of monsters with Wonder Woman, so I think he has the stamina to win out a fight. Batman wins, but it continues to get closer and closer, though that battle wouldn't be nearly as hard as this next one. This may seem a little strange, but Batman could be Alan. Alan isn't ever necessarily one to take the offensive, usually just a representative of the coalition of planets. Batman goes on the attack when he feels comfortable, and Alan would more than likely give him the opening to do so. While Alan's strength grows exponentially over the course of the series, there's no reason to think Batman couldn't find a way to incapacitate Alan. With Batman's depth of knowledge of strategy on how to take on opponents, he could find a means in which to outmaneuver Alan. When Batman took on Gotham, the character, he had enough foresight to get reinforcements, and there's no reason he wouldn't do that with Alan. While Alan has a strength and speed advantage, Batman's tactical approach to people stronger than him is undeniable, and it'll inevitably work to his advantage. Not everyone is as nice as Alan, so the fights only get more challenging. Now, this may seem like a stretch, but keep with me. Conquest would lose to the Batman. Allow me to explain. Conquest is a man who's gone planet to planet as the cleanup crew for the Viltrumite Empire. Mark wouldn't go along the Viltrum's plan, so they shipped Conquest down and let him beat Mark silly, but if you recall, Conquest seemed to play with his food. Batman tends to like to take advantage of the guys that know they're stronger than him and almost maps out an answer while taking the loss, a la the Button. He kept Reverse Flash talking while taking a beating to buy time for someone such as the Flash to come along and bail him out. Batman and his Justice Buster from Endgame would be enough to keep Conquest busy till he either came up with a way to put the old Viltrumite to sleep or got bailed out by members of the Justice League. It's not as cut and dry as most fights, but it isn't out of the question that Conquest would take the loss to Batman. The results from here on, though, get even closer to call as we take a look at Invincible, beginning of the series. Mark Grayson, Invincible, the man who leads the show. Early on, Mark starts off as a very kind-hearted guy, and that's why it'd go to Batman. Early stages of the series see Mark Grayson as a teenager thrust into the world of heroes and villains. Think of Mark as someone in the same vein as Spider-Man in terms of his role as this open-minded teenager. Mark's biggest downfall would be just how compassionate he is. Mark's slugfest with Omni-Man was one-sided because he was fishing for good in the hero. Batman may not be his dad, but Mark's early-on naivety would be his undoing. I see it as the same approach Batman has in the hypotheticals with Superman. Batman would fight dirty. Batman's access to stuff such as fear toxin from his rogue, the Scarecrow, would be a surefire way to make Mark complacent, as we see from stuff such as the Scourge virus that Mark is susceptible to, air viruses, and pathogens. Batman would also be more likely to take advantage of Mark's weaknesses as he has with Superman, most notably trying to punch Superman with a kryptonite ring. Mark's feats of strength are no doubt more impressive, but his early kindness would be the end of him. Unfortunately for the Dark Knight, there are some Invincible characters he wouldn't be able to contend with. I am as big a Batman fan as the next guy, but the truth is he can't beat them all. Mark Grayson by the end of the series could be Batman. This is correct, folks. You have to understand there is a difference between the early stages of Invincible and where he's at by the end of the comic book. For those of you who have only seen the show, I have to warn you that you'll learn some stuff. The end of the series finds Mark Grayson as the strongest living Viltrumite. He has also had the experience of everything he's had to face, and he finds himself at a much more leveled head than the Mark we follow for most of the series. As well in the comics, Mark Grayson would go on to be the ruler of the Viltrum Empire, so he has people behind him, so to speak. A Batman with all the prep time would fall to the end of the series Mark Grayson because Mark goes on to be smarter, stronger, and more efficient than where he would be. Yes, that's why Mark would both win and lose against Batman. Just depends on when they'd fight. Now for some other tougher battles for Mr. Wayne. There comes a point where one has to be realistic, and realistically, Adam Eve beats the Batman. Adam Eve has strength, speed, stamina, and matter manipulation. She can create shields, weapons, and other objects during combat. She can transmute pretty much everything, for example, having simply converted a piece of chicken into a piece of steak. It should also be pointed out that when she was gored by conquest, she both came back from the brink of death and fired a massive energy blast at him. Batman could run the Hellbat armor on Adam Eve, but on the off chance she couldn't just turn his armor into a block of wood, she could outlast him. Not to mention the obvious that she would probably get to him before he even had a chance. Unlike a more emotion-focused Mark, Eve would get the job done. She isn't the only character who would run Batman down. The rest would just do so a bit more ruthlessly. Nolan Grayson is someone who is sort of the stand-in for Superman, ruthless and efficient in his actions. There is no room for losing for Omni-Man. Omni-Man is ruthless and more efficient than Mark, as shown during his siege of the Flaxen Planet. There would be no time for strategy if he had decided to fight Batman, and at Batman's best, he would still have to deal with a durable powerhouse. Considering the stamina that Nolan presents, such as his unspecified stint on the Flaxen Planet just wrecking shop, the argument could be made that even with Batman's Hellbat, he could just wait him out, letting Hellbat kill Batman before he even had to try and win. Batman has a lot of brains and tech, but Nolan isn't like most of the people Bruce has had to face. While he may be the series' answer to Superman, he's very General Zod in his methods. The work has to be done, and if he can manage to, he will beat the Batman. Though there are people stronger than Omni-Man. Someone who is being teed up for the season 4 of Invincible is the Viltrum's Grand Regent, Thrag. There is no question that someone of Thrag's capabilities would win in a fight with Batman. It's important I remind you that Thrag is stronger than Nolan. Thrag is also more ruthless than Omni-Man. There's no time he would waste. There is no chance for a conversation. If Thrag got a hold of Bruce for even a second, that's the death of the Batman. It's no question that Thrag wins. Would Batman have any possible win? No, most likely not. In the comics, Thrag has gone as far as fighting Mark within the sun, so I don't think there's enough prep time for a guy like that. There are more though that would give the Caped Crusader a quick and crushing loss. Robot as a character is someone who seems even more paranoid and even more prepared than the Batman. Robot is so extreme that the win would go to him. A man who would make robots so that he could fight crime but never have to be in the room. A man who has cloned a friend of his so he could have the body. Robot or Rudy is someone who will make all of these plans and not care who goes down in the process. Batman may have contingencies for the Justice League, but in the comics, Robot went as far as to take over Earth because he found it would be the best way to guarantee Earth's safety. That sort of paranoia puts Batman's to shame, and Batman was a guy who crafted Brother Eye for the sake of the safety of people and the observation of metahumans. Robot, however, wasn't working through a secondary entity. He was the man behind all these robots and all this observation. Rudy would prepare for most anything Batman could think of, and in a one-on-one, he'd overwhelm the Batman for a swift and efficient win. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another, click the video on screen now.